Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Mike Wade. Thank you for tuning in to Dissect and Connect, a podcast where we explore population health issues impacting your community. This podcast is a service of Montgomery County Prevention Partners and New River Valley Community Services. Our podcast is made possible by a grant from Carilion Clinic. The views expressed in this program may not reflect those of Carilion Clinic. Since this is my first episode as host of the podcast, I wanted to start by acknowledging the contributions of my predecessor and your former host, Nicole Cothe. Nicole was really instrumental in getting this podcast off the ground, and she's put in a tremendous amount of work since that time to get us to where we are today. I know that I have some big shoes to fill in taking on this role, but my hope is to step in and continue the great work that Nicole started and to also make her proud. As some of you know, Nicole recently left our organization to take on what I think is an exciting career opportunity for her, and she has also promised to stay in touch. So as I hear from her, I'll be sure to pass along updates and let you know about all the great things that Nicole will be doing in her career, and we certainly wish her the best. And what a very interesting time it is to be hosting a podcast that is focused on population health. This episode is being recorded in mid-March of 2020. And as I speak, our world is faced with what is, without a doubt, the most significant public health crisis in a generation. I'm referring to, of course, COVID-19, or as it's often referred to as coronavirus. The current situation with coronavirus has been declared a pandemic, and that term alone conjures up a certain amount of fear and anxiety, understandably so. Internationally, we've already seen hundreds of people die from this disease in just a few short months. Countries like China and Italy have been devastated by this outbreak. We also now have confirmed cases and deaths here in the U.S., including right here in Virginia. Public schools are closed. Many businesses and government offices are shutting their doors. People are being asked to work from home if at all possible. It's a very scary time. And while a conversation about coronavirus could obviously go in a lot of different directions, today we're going to focus on how this situation can impact our mental health. While it's obviously important for us all to take the necessary precautions to protect ourselves and those around us, basic things like washing our hands routinely and staying at home whenever possible, we also have to consider the impact that this whole thing can have on our mental well-being. And so that's really what we want to focus on today and try to give you a few examples of things that you can do to minimize the impact that this might have on you personally. And the good news is these are things that we can all do. They won't cost you any money, and they don't require a lot of effort. Truth is, what we're going to go over today is probably a lot easier than it is to get your hands on a roll of toilet paper these days. The first tip is one that I've actually implemented into my own life, and it's made a tremendous difference already. And that is to take a step back. It's very easy for us to get caught up in the 24-hour news cyclone that is so readily available to all of us, whether it's on television or through social media. The headlines, the stories, the bullet points about coronavirus, you almost can't escape them. It's really become the topic that everyone is talking about, with good reason. However, for our own mental health, it's really helpful sometimes to take a step back and give yourself a bit of a break. Should you stay informed about what's happening? Of course. You need to be aware of the risks associated with coronavirus, and you need to know how to best protect you and your family, and also know how this is impacting your community. There's no denying that that is important information to have. So tip number 1, unplug, turn it off, step away. Give yourself a break. Moving on to tip number 2. If you're among those of us who are now staying at home or working at home in response to the coronavirus outbreak, there's never been a more important time for you to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So make sure that you and your family members are getting a sufficient amount of sleep each night, that you're eating well-balanced meals, and even though I know there are many gyms and rec centers that are now closed because of the coronavirus, exercise is still incredibly important. Even if you don't have fitness equipment in your home, you can still stay active. Use this opportunity to do some major spring cleaning at your house. Use the technology you have available and stream or download a workout routine on your mobile device. Do some yard work or maybe tackle some of those home improvement projects that you've had on the back burner. And of course, going outside, getting fresh air, going for a nice walk or jog is always an option. And while we've all been forced to become familiar with the term social distancing, it's also incredibly important for us to maintain our relationships. So be adventurous and use the call function on your smartphone to reach out to a loved one or maybe a friend that you haven't spoken with in some time. In times of uncertainty like what we're currently experiencing, it's very easy for some of us to gravitate toward coping mechanisms that aren't necessarily in our best interest. I'm specifically referring to the use of substances, alcohol, and other drugs. Substance use can often just compound mental health issues that we're already facing. If you do find that you are struggling, I encourage you to reach out and seek professional help. We'll include links to some resources in the show notes for today's episode. On to tip number 3. So most of us are likely to have more free time on our hands now that we're practicing social distancing. This is a great time to catch up on books that you've always wanted to read, or to catch up on binge watching of your favorite television show. I know I personally find a lot of comfort in listening to music, and so if that's something you enjoy, find a quiet space to sit back and just enjoy your favorite music. I find that incredibly therapeutic. If you happen to be a parent, you might also need to consider how this situation will impact the mental and emotional well-being of your children. With that in mind, it's important to remember that children often respond to stressful situations differently than you or I might as adults. You might notice that they become more clingy or anxious. Some might become more agitated and withdrawn. If you happen to notice that your child's behaving differently, take time to sit down with them and have a conversation. Give them age-appropriate facts about the situation. Set your phone down, turn off the television, look them in the eye, and listen to their concerns. Help reassure them that you are doing everything that you can as their parent to protect them in their own home, and that there are many people in their community who are working very hard to make sure that they are safe. And again, it's important that your kids are getting the right amount of sleep, that they're eating healthy foods, and that they have plenty of time to exercise and play. And just like with adults, it's important to limit their screen time as well. It's obviously far more harder to do this with schools being closed, but as much as possible, maintain a normal routine. And although I've already touched upon it at the beginning of the show, it's also important that you get your kids in the habit of washing their hands routinely, including after each time they go to the restroom and before they eat. And just a word of advice from one parent to the rest of you out there, our kids are watching us even when we think they aren't. So be sure that you're modeling good behaviors and that you are also washing your hands routinely and practicing good hygiene. These are definitely challenging times, but I hope you can take at least some comfort in knowing that there are very simple things that each of us can do to limit our own risk of infection and hopefully minimize the spread of coronavirus in our own communities. Until next time, be well. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Dissect and Connect. For more information about Montgomery County Prevention Partners or New River Valley Community Services, be sure to check us out on Facebook or visit nrvcs.org.